Welcome. I'm Gary Parr. It's Fiber Talk. It's the middle of the week, and I'm flying solo, sitting in a hotel room in Orlando, Florida, after a long day of conference babbling. And so we're going to talk for a half hour or so about needlework, just so there's a fresh midweek show instead of running a repeat. So that should be exciting. I'm doing it with a handheld digital recorder, so who knows what the sound's going to be like. And of course, hotel room, yeah. I'm in Florida with the air conditioner off, so we don't have the fan in the background, so it'll probably warm up rather quickly. That's my weather report. Let's see. Last week we talked about Michelle Garrett, Bendy. We just call her Bendy. I think we'll just call her Bendy. Her charity of the month, which is apraxia for kids, an affliction that kids, their minds work just fine, but the connection between that and the verbal expression of what they're thinking and what they want just does not work. And we heard from Heather, the imperfectly perfect stitcher, whose child has this situation. And last week, let's see, I was listening to the Michelle Garrett Tuesday podcast this morning because I couldn't sleep because I'm in a hotel room in Florida and I don't sleep worth a hoot on the road. So I was up and listened to the Bendy offering of the week. Apparently last week, $400 she raised to help kids get the iPad and the app that they need so that they can communicate. These kids, there's an app and they can communicate. And so $400 last week, and she has several auction items up this week. So you'll want to connect with her if you're interested in bidding on some auction items, or you can just go to apraxiakids.org. That's APRAXIA-kids.org, and you can just contribute money to the cause there. But much more fun to bid on things that Michelle has and get some stitching stuff that you don't need. I mean, let's be realistic here. So bid on that. That'll help out Michelle's effort, and you get stuff in return. So do that. Be links for this podcast so you can connect with Michelle. She's Bendy Stitchy, Michelle Garrett. You can find her on Instagram and on FlossTube quite easily. And she also has a blog, but it's easiest to just go to FlossTube and find her that way. She always puts all of her links in the show notes for each of her FlossTube videos, so you'll want to do that. But it's a great cause, and I just, again, as I did last week, applaud Michelle for carrying on after her Alzheimer's Walk fundraising to now be doing a charity every month and using what people are willing to donate, charts and other things for auctions to help raise money for these various causes. I think it's just a terrific thing she's doing. And she's got a new job too, she said. So her schedule's going to get shifted around on her. So we'll see what impact that has, but all indications are she's going to continue this effort. So looking forward to that and support her. I think she's doing a great thing with the charities, and plus one of those that I listen to every week. Both of her podcasts, just enjoy listening to her, and worth checking out. Last Sunday, we had Susan O'Connor, the editor of Inspirations magazine, and I'm learning. I gotta do some self-discipline here, because having these guests is getting expensive. After that conversation, I went and bought the print version of Inspirations. I already had the digital version, but after Christine was talking about the print version of the 100th issue, I just had to have that in my hot little hands. So I went and subscribed to the print version, and check the box to start with the current issue, which should mean that I'll get the 100th issue, assuming they haven't sold out. And then I'm going to get the print one from then on. I'll probably let the digital one lapse because then I'll have the fancy paper right there in my hands. And then I really caved. And the Factoria 7, A Passion for Needlework book that Susan talked about, I bought it. The exchange rate, she said the exchange rate was quite good, US dollar to Australian dollar, and it was, so it didn't seem like it was too painful. Gained quite a bit there, but I'm sure the shipping offset that. But anyway, so I have Factoria 7 coming to me, and then just the other day, I think it was Tuesday, Mary Corbett, of course it's always Mary Corbett, did a review of the Factoria 7 book. And when I saw that, I was really glad that I ordered it. And another beautiful publication from the Inspiration Studios folks. And I have the Passion for Needlework book. It's a paperback version. And of course, that irked me. I buy the paperback version, and then they have the deluxe hardbound version, which would be really nice sitting on a shelf next to the Factoria hardbound version. But, oh well. So I got both of those coming. I have no idea if I'd ever stitch anything out of those projects, but they're just beautiful to look at. And you'll want to go to Needle and Thread, Mary Corbett's site. If I shouldn't have to tell you to go there, because you should already be a subscriber. You should be already receiving notification every time Mary posts something, just because you stitch and she covers the waterfront. So you should be subscribed to her. But go there and you can see the book and decide for yourself if you want it. And she does caution that a couple places in the States are already sold out, and so you might want to act quickly. I know I ran into that with the first book, The Passion for Needlework. I bought that through Amazon, or my kids bought it for me as a gift, and they weren't able to deliver it, and finally they canceled the order. And then sometime later I was able to get it. Not sure. Susan indicated that they were not out, but there sure seemed to be a long thing. So maybe it was just availability here in the States. I'm not sure. But this Factoria 7, the new book, Mary's indicated some are already sold out. I bought mine right from Australia. I have no idea how long it'll take to get here. But I have other books to read, so I'm not sitting watching the mail. So that's coming, and I got to stop this because it gets just, these guests are costing me too much money. I bought 3 Trish Burr books after we talked with her, and now the magazine subscription and Factoria 7 after talking to Susan O'Connor. That's it. Cutting myself off. That's, these guests are costing me too much money. Also, now Mary Corbett last year gave away, she gets some really nice giveaway items through December. And I forget how that works, if it's daily. I don't think it's daily, but with some frequency during the week, she usually has you answer a question or something, and then there's a giveaway. And boy, she had some really nice things last year. I entered every one of them, didn't win a one of them, but some really nice things. And she indicated that she has 5 copies of the Factoria 7 book to give away in December. So, as I said earlier, if you are not following Mary Corbett, if you're not subscribed to her site and getting email notification whenever she posts, then you must do that right away and then get in on these drawings in December. You might get lucky and win one of these Factoria books. And even if you don't and you win something else, she really last year had some really nice items that done for the drawings, that she offered for the drawings from various manufacturers. Really, really nice things. So do that and follow her, because that's a fun December. Just hoping you'll win one of those. This afternoon I was in charge of moderating talks in one of the conference sessions, which means that you have to sit there the entire afternoon and warn the speakers when they're about out of time, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you need to wrap up, you're going to screw up the schedule kind of thing. And so I sat there all afternoon, and I did a bunch of work, and the topics were not ones that I was all that interested in using in the magazine, so it wasn't like I wanted to take a bunch of notes. But so I worked on what to talk about this week in the Midweek show, and ran across a Washington Post article that was published today. I'll give a link to it, where MIT PhD candidate, I have no idea how to say this name, Hyejun, Hyejun, Kim, did a study of 400,000 knitters on Ravelry. The knitter forum podcast, or not podcast, forum discussion shopping mecca. 400,000 knitters, because she realized that all those knitters, and if you follow what goes on, that she could piece together rather easily a progression for how people go from hobbyist to business owner, because that's pretty much what Ravelry is set up to do. It's one of the paths you can follow with Ravelry. Is if you are designing knitted pieces, whether it's a shawl, a sweater, or a hood for your dog, I don't know. There's a clear path to putting those charts, those patterns up, and selling them. And so Kim, this student, PhD candidate, studied what it is, where is it that people turn from hobbyist to business person. And it's interesting reading in the story, and then I actually got sucked into reading a little bit of the paper that the publication that she put together, and it turns out that it isn't necessarily the online discussions and online postings that flip the switch and make people turn their hobby into, or at least try to turn their hobby into some kind of a money-making thing, that it's actually family and friends. And the encouragement that people get from their local knitting groups and from their friends who see their things and say, wow, this is really good, you should sell it. And it's the self-confidence, the thing, according to this research, that holds, and it's all women. I mean, what she said, 95 or so percent of the members of Ravelry are women, that the thing that held them back was lack of confidence. And it wasn't until they were encouraged by their friends and family to sell their designs that they made the leap of faith and started selling. And I'm sure that there's when you got that many people on Ravelry, I'm sure there's a million stories about success and failure. But that was the thing that really turned it for people, was not the online encouragement. And she said that in this study that the most skilled needle workers were the ones more likely to do it and more likely to get the courage up. And that's obvious. But and describe it was people who joined Stitch and Bitch groups, meaning local daily, weekly gatherings. 25% were 25% more likely to take the plunge and try to make a business out of it. So it's an interesting study, and you would expect that it would be online and demand for, can I buy your design? But apparently not. Apparently it's back to the old-fashioned people you know and people you talk to face are the people that give you enough confidence to do it. So that was interesting. And then of course the other side of turning a hobby into a business is that is, there's that old adage that that is the fastest way and the best way to ruin the hobby. And you can make that argument. I experienced that with my photography long ago. That was a chance to make money for a young family, and so I started doing wedding photography. I had my hobby when our daughter was born. I bought a 35 millimeter camera and taught myself how to do photography, learned how, and then I got an opportunity to do weddings, and I took it because it was a way to spend 6 or 8 hours on a Saturday and shoot a wedding, hand in the film, and get a check. It was pretty straightforward. I didn't have to do albums with brides or anything like that. It was just a straightforward shoot the wedding, get some money. I did that for 10 years, and every Saturday. So I, of course, had a full-time job, and so basically I was working 6 days a week. And if you think for a moment that shooting weddings is not hard work, I'll tell you a few stories sometime. It is really hard, and it's even harder in the summer, and it's even harder when it's outdoor weddings. I had my wedding jacket, the lining of that thing was absolutely destroyed when I finally threw it away because it had just been soaked through with sweat so many times, and there were many times where Margaret would meet me between wedding and reception on a hot summer day so I could put on a dry shirt. A lot of work to do weddings and do them well. I think I did them well. Nobody ever complained. But it was a way to make money out of my hobby, which a lot of people do that. But the interesting thing was, in the 10-year time, over that period, the enjoyment photography that I was doing got less and less and less. And 5 or 6 years in, it got to the point where I would shoot a wedding and the camera gear would get put away on Saturday night and it wouldn't come out till the next Saturday. And I had no interest. And it took all the fun out because I was shooting so many weddings. And that was 9 months. It was just about every Saturday for 9 months out of the year. And then one day I just said to the lady I was working for, the shop owner, I said, hey, it's just not fun for me anymore. It's just become a grind. I mean, I really grew to hate it, and it just become a grind. And I said, I just got to quit. I'm not doing anybody any good. I'm not doing me any good, not doing the family any good other than the money that was coming in. And on top of it, I knew I was not doing nearly as good a job with the brides because I just wanted to shoot it and go home. So I stopped, and it was interesting that I don't think it was a year later that the lady, Sandy, that I was shooting for sold her business. She'd had enough too. It just can be a grind. And it was still several years after that before I really started doing art or creative photography again. It completely sucked it right out of me. And so I'm always wary of that, turn the hobby into a business or try to make money off of it, because it is very easy to have that happen. But as I thought about it, reading this article, and that was my first thought was, oh no, you think you want to do that. But I think there's a different dimension with needlework if you're a designer. And there are a lot of people who do designs and sell them, and seem quite happy doing it. And a lot of people who started stores or businesses on the side, and I know many of them discover that it really cuts into your stitching time, that what happens is you end up spending so much time doing the business aspect that, again, it takes the fun out of it. But I was thinking that there's a difference with needlework in that it's the teaching angle. And because there are so many designers who have designs and then travel all over to stores and to local clubs and retreats and so on and so forth and teach those designs. And to me, that's a little different. And I think that's where if you wanted to turn your needlework, if you have a talent for design and people seem to like your designs, that I think that's a different thing, because that's not running a store and buying inventory and so on and so forth. That teaching at events is a little different. But then also, even if you buy a store, and I'm sure many store owners will tell you that hours and hours and hours every week get chewed up ordering and doing inventory and tracking inventory and straightening up the stores and figuring out sales and all those things. But again, you have that teaching aspect that can feed your stitching interest, in that maybe you are so tired at night that you don't want to stitch, but all day long you've been helping customers stitch and showing them how to accomplish something, or helping them choose colors or change colors in a chart. And so it seems to me that there's a little different angle with needlework than, say, I would have had doing photography as a business, in that you can still actually be involved in stitching even if you don't stitch, and you can still work in a little bit of stitching here and there. Get a quiet moment in the store, you can do a little stitching. A lot of stores don't open until 10 o'clock. You do a little bit in the morning. You can do little bits and pieces here and there to keep your hobby interest going. But I think that the teaching and the sharing aspect might just have add a different color, a different dimension is the word I'm after, to converting a hobby to a business. And I think also, compared to the way when I was doing weddings, where it just drained me, literally drained me. These days, people who talk about, so much time is taken up with running the business, and computers and the internet and online ordering and so on and so forth can help that to some degree. But it is still, I know the people we've talked to, the people we've had as guests, it's just a lot of work. And you either enjoy it or you don't. Maybe you find somebody else to help you do that kind of thing. But still, you get to stitch either vicariously or directly, and I think that's a different dimension. But this Washington Post article was quite interesting, in that it talked about that it's still the human to human interaction that really tips it in. And there are other ways. Now, if you take Gann Rogers as an example. Now, she I have no idea if she makes money or not. I assume she makes money, or she wouldn't do it. But she controls. She does not let the business control her. She controls, because she'll have a sale. We all know that. She'll have a sale for X amount of time on X projects, kits, or charts. These are what are on sale for X amount of time till they're sold out, and then she mails them out, and then that's it. And then there's not a sale till some other appointed time. I don't know. I don't really know if she does 2 or 3 times a year, but it doesn't really matter. So she controls it that way. And I think the last one that she had actually hired someone or coerced someone into helping her mail, because that's the one thing, was packaging all the kits up and mailing them. And, of course, putting the kits together, some of hers, that alone is a monstrous job. But she controls it that way, and she'll tell you, as she told us in the podcast and in private conversations, otherwise she would never have time to design and stitch, because she would be running a business all the time. So she keeps it contained in that way, and has these little 2 and 3 week or even a month-long flurry of activity, and then it's over. And she can go back to designing and stitching and enjoying her hobby, and then she'll have another one. And then if you listen to the Trish Burr podcast here a couple weeks ago, Trish had gotten to the point where her business had grown, and, bravo for her. I mean, that's just, that's what we all dream about if we start that. But she was spending 18 hours a day, she said, ignoring her family, keeping her business going, ordering, mailing, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't allowing her to advance her art, her needlework art. And so now she is in the midst of right now dialing back her business, taking it way back so that she has time to do what she wants to do and to enjoy needlework, embroidery, again. And I think that she probably enjoyed the business to a point, but 18 hours a day, if you're literally doing that much, day in and day out, and it never ends, that at some point that just gets to be too much. And so that's another way to do it, is say, I'm going to try this, but I'm going to set some limits and keep this under control. So a couple of interesting ways to do it, but anyway, it's still the personal interaction that drives these things, and that makes people go into the business. So, and for me, doing these podcasts is enjoyment. Really enjoy that. But the thought of starting and making a business out of designing and selling charts, I don't have that talent anyway. I just know it would ruin stitching for me, so I'm just not going to do it. If we could make a business out of this podcast thing, that's one thing. That's a different thing. But even that is so much fun, talking to all these guests, that we just really enjoy that, and people seem to really enjoy it. So so that's, let's see, that was an interesting little thing. Now, another thing that has come up, I've seen many people, not many people, but several people lately talking about losing interest in stitching. Like they just are not motivated. They don't have, they just lost their enthusiasm. And I've thought about that more than once, and I think I've mentioned a couple of times, that to me there's a solution to that. I mean, it's interesting, because, and I know that feeling where I really want to do it, but I'm just not motivated to do it. I just, there's not that spark there. And for me, I bounce back and forth, and that's the way I handle it. I've not felt that way where I've not been interested, but I have different stitching techniques going at one time. Like right now on the road, I'm taking surface embroidery with me because it's easy to haul, small hoop, cloth, some thread, and pretty easy. I don't have something on a stretcher bars or a scroll frame. And so I can haul that on an airplane and stitch. And as a matter of fact, when after I go get some dinner, after I record this, that's what I'm going to do, is sit here and do some Mary Corbett embroidery and watch TV tonight, because my work got done today while I was monitoring talks. And so I have a night where I can actually do that here in the hotel room. I have my lap stand with me, so I'm all set to go. But I mean, I just, if you're in that position, I would suggest that you try a different kind of needlework. Either challenge yourself or try something that's fairly mindless. And you can do that if you're a needle pointer and you're just tired of needlepoint. Try some cross stitch. There's lots of simple cross stitch charts, lots of free ones, and all you need is a piece of cloth, and you can stitch it in hand or a hoop, whatever, and just make X's. Just make rows and rows of X's. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to do a Jessica stitch. You just, or a whatever. Just make X's and just do something mindless. And so you're stitching, but you can do it fairly mindlessly. Now, I will caution you, be careful what you choose for needlework or for cross stitch. I'm working on that Sarah Brazier sampler. And the other night I was in mindless mode, watching TV and making X's on Sarah Brazier, and got a motif just about done, and discovered it was a tree. Discovered I was 1 X short on the trunk. And the motif was just about done, and the only way to fix that was to rip it all out. So my evening of stitching amounted to about 10 X's of stitching that stayed in the linen. The rest of it all came back out, and it's sitting there waiting for when I get home, so I get to do it all over again, because I didn't count, because I was busy watching, I'm sure, football. So you have to pay attention to that degree, but you can just make X's and get some stitching in, and maybe regain your excitement for what for your original project. And you can go the reverse. If you're a cross stitcher, try charted needlepoint. It's not an expensive thing to get involved in. There's lots of free ones. Lots of designers offer free charts, small things, 5-6 inch square pieces. So you just buy a small piece of canvas, and with needlepoint, you get to try you certainly get to try stitches, but you get to try threads that don't normally work for cross stitch, and you can get, there's complex stitches. I talk about Debbie Rowley and the challenges she presents for me, and I really do enjoy her. But there are several designers who have very simple designs that are absolutely stunning, and don't take a lot. You don't have to sit and figure out and learn how to do these specialty complex stitches at all. Caroline Hoff of Off the Grid Needle Arts showed one just the other day where I forget whose it is, Nancy's Needle I think it was, but just very basic stitches, but overdyed yarn thread, and not yarn, but overdyed thread, and just a stunning piece, really beautiful, and there's nothing complex about it at all. And so that, that's a way, and it's something different. And you can, a lot of that needlepoint, you don't need a magnifier, just decent light, because you're not stitching on linen. And it's another way. Give it a try. And then if you want to go the other way and say, hey, I want something that's really going to make me sit up and pay attention, geez, there's all kinds of embroidery, stump work, drawn thread, pulled thread, hardanger, you name it, that will make you get to work and work your mind. And that's another way to do it, is to go that way. So I just, right now I've got a cross stitch, 2 needlepoint, and 2 embroidery things going all at once here that I just kind of bounce back and forth depending on if I'm really tired or really enthusiastic, or have time, have 2 or 3 hours where I can really focus on something. And to me, it just keeps me energized and interested all the way. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Sunday you do not want to miss. Our guest Sunday is Laura Mina, and Laura is the conservator at Winterthur. And it's really kind of a 2-part podcast, because we get to learn about what it's like to be a conservator at a place of the stature of Winterthur. And that's fascinating in its own right. But then we also talk about what we as stitchers should and shouldn't do in terms of storing our thread and our canvases and our finished projects and so on and so forth. And should we wrap them in newspaper? No. But how should we store these things? What's safe? What isn't? What should we do to make sure that things are going to last? And really learned a lot from Laura on that end of things, all based on her work as a conservator. And I had her take us through what it takes to become a conservator, what it takes in terms of schooling, and there's a lot of schooling that you would not think. I thought it was going to be I got a job and I learned from some master, and after several years of experience, I was good enough to stand on my own. No, she went to school, and she had to do quite a bit of schoolwork, history, chemistry, the whole bit. So that was interesting. And then, of course, then she also had to study under somebody to learn. But just what she went through, and you can just tell in talking to her, she says it, she's lucky. She really landed in a great spot and has interesting challenges all the time. And so it was just a tremendous conversation with Laura Mina about what she does there at Winterthur, and then some great advice from her for our own caring and nurturing of our stash. And so don't miss that Sunday, and be sure and spread it around, share it with others. And that's something I keep forgetting to mention, is all of our podcasts go on FlossTube and they go on our website, wetalkfiber.com. You can get them on any podcast app. I don't know that there's one that hasn't picked us up or we haven't put us on. And of course, it's, as I've said, it's a true podcast. You can get the full effect without video. I put the video up because we have several people who watch us on FlossTube, but you can just get it on your phone, hook it up to your car sound system, and listen while you drive. And so that's, check that out, but spread the word for us. We really would appreciate if you hear something you enjoy, share it with others. Help us spread the word. We've grown quite quickly, but I'd like to grow more, get a bigger audience. And so if you help us out by spreading the word, you listen to this one Sunday and let people know through your various groups, Facebook and otherwise, that about the Fiber Talk podcast. Really would appreciate that help. And, of course, subscribe to us. Either subscribe on our website at We Talk Fiber or on FlossTube, YouTube. Subscribe there, but we appreciate that. And as I've said before, the best thing to do with the podcast is download those podcasts to the app on your phone. Then you don't have to be connected. You don't have to stream it and don't have to have a wireless connection or use up your data minutes. Download the podcasts while you're at home off your Wi-Fi, and then you have them in your phone and listen to them while you're out walking the dog or driving in the car or whatever. And then with most of the apps, let that thing run right to the end, then it will automatically delete it. And help us out. We would really appreciate if people would help us out by spreading the word about Fiber Talk and encouraging others to listen to us. All right, that's all I have. Laura Mina, conservator at Winterthur, is our Sunday guest. Thanks for listening.